Hi, guys. Thank you for joining. This is Essence of Medicine, and today we're talking about smallpox. I'm Amanda Armagost.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence. And I'm already starting to laugh because there's no way we can talk about smallpox without going billions of years back.
Oh my
in
gosh.
time.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, what is a virus?
A germ?
Yeah,
a living germ?
That exactly, no.
It's not
a living.
okay.
It's not a living germ, but what is your understanding of a computer virus? You probably know more about computer virus than.
No, I probably don't
No?
know more about
Okay.
computer viruses.
So a virus is just a genetic code. That's all what it is. And the genetic code, let's go billions of years back. Life started most likely on Earth as ribonucleic acid RNA sequence. RNA or nucleic acid connected together. There were, I'm sure at that time there were more variation, but now there are only 4 types of them. What they do, or what RNA does, is a single line of genetic code that has 4 different, genetic information, different, and depending on what it is, it can actually fold. We know now, and that's not the really old knowledge, that RNA can act like an enzyme, and life is based on enzyme. Life is based on big molecule that literally have a function and they're able to replicate themselves. And RNA does both. It can fold, act like a big molecule that has an enzymatic activity, but as well it can replicate itself. But it doesn't do either one very good. Because the way how it replicates, it is actually is very prone to mistakes in the replication. Obviously, the bad copies never work. The good copy go and infect somebody else. But as well, the enzymatic activity of the RNA is very limited. So eventually, life found out that it can do better to put the genetic activity in DNA, which is double-stranded, meaning it's way more stable than RNA. But as well, instead of using 4 codes for RNA that can fold, using 19 codes, 19 different amino acids, create a protein, and RNA is what connected both together, the DNA word to protein word. Now, it is still probably not completely settled, but most likely it's from both sides. Life tried everything. There were some small cells, bacteria, that lost everything and they were completely relying on other cells to replicate. And there were some genetic code that just by pure luck, and that's what the mutation and evolution is. If something is good, goes forward, one of 10,000 times something is good in mutation, or maybe even less. But that's the point. All that 9,999, they just vanish. The one that is successful goes on and become more powerful. The one mutation that's... So from both sides, cell losing their genetic material, the capacity relying on other cells, and as well some viruses became from just genetic code that they enter a cell and hijack the material of that cell to replicate, like a parasite, more or less.
A virus is similar to a parasite?
I would say so. Like,
because a virus needs like a host, right? To thrive.
Absolutely. No, not to thrive, to just replicate. Virus has only one function, to replicate. Now, as a matter of fact, we say that 70% of the bacteria. Now, when we talk about viruses, most of the people think viruses are what makes us sick. As a matter of fact, we are just a negligible kind of thing for viruses. I think probably less than, I strongly believe, less than 1 trillionth of the viruses exist on planet Earth. affect human. See, viruses need cells, and they need to get into the replication of the cell to replicate themselves. Human being, we are so poor at that. Like there's 8 billion human beings, right? If you take a spoon of water from the sea, there are probably more bacteria in that spoon of water in the sea or in the ocean than there are human. There are more bacteria there. So bacteria are specifically so eager to use hijack. Viruses are eager to hijack bacteria's life cycle. As a matter of fact, we say 70% of the bacteria on Earth die of these viruses that go and if you look at the viruses, you see all the mechanism is really aimed for that. All those viruses that affect human are abnormalities, negligible. I mean, obviously not for human negligible, but in the amount of life is going on planet is negligible. Now, having said that, we human we have really evolved to be a significant part of the mammals on this earth. Do you know what I mean by that?
Like we're an apex.
No other natural mammals have been successful to have that many copies. I'm not talking about like there are more pigs than human on the planet, but we make them, or chickens and so on. We make them. Okay? But no other predator mammal on the earth has been successful to have so many copies. What does that mean? Like, can you imagine you have a city, millions of lions in that city? Or
no, but I feel like there's like millions of birds.
And that's why we have as well certain viruses that are specialized on birds.
Like avian flu? Was
yeah,
that
well,
a virus?
Yeah. Now, what I'm trying to get at, I'm talking about mammals now, is that there are certain viruses are specialized on mammals and specifically on human, because what helps it is not that there's a gathering of the elderly viruses get together. Oh, let's make rules and so on and so forth. But viruses need a host, and viruses need host to replicate, and they need that the next host is close enough to jump to that host. Well, what are the ways a virus get from one person to another?
Gatherings.
Touch, blood, semen, or sexual interaction, bodily fluid, or air. Okay? And they utilize one or another to whatever extent they can, but we humans, we are pretty good at, filtering a lot of things, and, like all our surfaces have a very strong immune reaction and so on and so forth. But more or less, eventually, when the humanity start having so many individuals in one location, cities, certain viruses start thriving more than the others. And there are certain things important about viruses. Imagine there's a virus like Ebola that 95% of the people die of it. So what do you think, what's the chance of that virus to propagate? Very little. Because if everybody who gets it dies, then the virus cannot propagate. Now, as a matter of fact, the diseases where the virus has the mildest kind of
the common flu.
Yeah, those are most common.
The least deadly symptoms, is that what you're saying?
Yes, least deadly viruses are more likely to exist in broader population. And but again, it's not like elderly of like viruses are not like countries that they get together. We want to be that deadly and the other one and so on. They do what they do. They hijack our internal mechanism. Like Ebola makes you bleed from all your orifices and you die pretty fast. But then the viruses dies with it. Now, something like common cold, It's usually very mild, except if there are changes in the DNA and so on, and then
Or
all of a
like you
sudden
have
become,
comorbidities.
yeah. And that is so hard to get adjusted to it. And then there's lots of diseases between that you don't 90% or 95% don't die, but it's not mild either. And those diseases have been with humanity for a long, long time. And smallpox is one of them. Like originally, the smallpox, we say that had a mortality of 30%. Well, 30% is definitely not 95%.
But it's still pretty high, 1/3.
For today's standard, is very high.
Yeah.
For today's standard, 2% is high. Like,
yeah.
what do you think what the mortality of COVID was?
But it totally depends on who you ask.
Well, just ask ChatGPT. We should have the information. We considered it very high, but considering what disease humanity has gone through, it was actually very low. So, what does ChatGPT say about the mortality?
She has to tell me a whole story first. Early in the pandemic, 2020, it was 2 to 3% globally. And then as of 2023, it went to 1% globally. And then late 2024, it was 0.2 to 0.3%.
Now, this is when we diagnosed the people went to the hospital and so on, considering many of them that they didn't really even go to the hospital and the people just live with it. I think it was less than 0.5%. This is what I believe truly to be the mortality of COVID, which for us was high.
Mm-hmm.
But for life, the way life works, that's not really high. 30%, there's still 70% of the individual that can mortality of some bacteria in the hand of virus is 99.999.
So when smallpox first came about, where does that fall on the...
Smallpox has lived with humanity forever.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, it was nothing unusual. Smallpox visit a village, affect everybody, kills a lot of people. But then the people, and that is the point, and that is the point, because smallpox is a relatively stable virus, meaning that the virus is evolved enough and that it doesn't change really much. Once you get the disease, your immune system knows it, create immunity to it, and it cannot affect you again. So, and this is what actually this knowledge as well has been with us for a long time. Smallpox is, it causes you these different symptoms, but it's very
What are the symptoms?
Well,
because
general, almost imagine everything that you get from COVID and flu, but 10 times more.
Plus also what you get from chickenpox.
Pustules, in the skin and so on. You get this, like vesicles that, like
pox.
Yeah.
You get dots on your skin that are itchy.
Well, it's more than itchy. It breaks down and it literally disfigures you. As a matter of fact, you may not have it. When I got my smallpox vaccination, and I was still in a generation that everybody got it, they would infiltrate a part on the arm, and most of people in my generation, they still have the scar of the smallpox immunization still. Now imagine that if you see it, you think it's a small little area, like the size of a quarter burned, but it's not burned.
The size of a quarter?
Oh yeah.
That's not that small.
Well, it is what it is. It is. I'm going to show it to you, and lots of people my generation actually have that and live with it. Right? Do you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Right there? Okay, that's size of a quarter, right? Almost.
It's not a circle. Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is usually its immunization is as a circle and so on. So, having said that, so people found out long before we had scientists, long before we had anybody who could help us with that and so on, that if you had it, you won't get it again.
Same. That's why people say, like, now, measles is back, and people are kind of some people are making a big deal of it, but other people, like the older generation, like older than you but younger than my grandma, are saying No, measles isn't bad. When we had measles as a kid, we all just slept in one bed. We all got it and got over it with it.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, this knowledge that how it works is, can you look up in ChatGPT what is the origin of the name vaccination? Because these are related things. Imagine in the time that we had no knowledge of bacteria, we didn't know what cell is, we didn't know what DNA is. We still knew.
It comes from the Latin word vaca, which means cow.
Okay, and I'm going to tell you how they are connected. So, what do you think? Why the word cow and vaccination and smallpox are related?
I'm just guessing it has something to do with like the pancreas of the cow. I have no idea.
No, it is not. See, you remember I said that uh, smallpox come to a village and kills 30%, but the other 70% thrive, they're okay, and then they move on and so on. Two things happens here. Number one, those people who recover versus die, they're genetically more apt to fight smallpox or
A little
virus
bit
diseases.
genetically stronger.
Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, that was a huge factor when the European colonized United States or Americas, that they have gone, because in Europe they had cities. You remember, accumulation of the people, best place for the for viruses and so on. You know, in Americas it was rare that, I mean, there were some societies that had, but it was more rare that they have that high population centers. Aztec had it, Mayas had it, but not to the extent that European had it, and there weren't as much uh, travel as the European.
Sure.
Okay, so one factor that those 70% that um, survived are more genetically resistant, but as well they're immune from now on. And when people, again, over the thousands or hundreds of years, people observe, for some reason, these girls who milk the cows, they don't get smallpox, or if they get it, they get a very mild form of it, whereas the boys are dying. So, and they observe, especially if the how do you say, the udders of the cow have something very similar to what appears on the human body. If they have cow version of smallpox,
Okay.
then
They're getting immune.
here you are. And hence, vaccination comes from our history of observing that we had the word vaccination long before we knew anything about anything. But so those girls are they get a small mild version, and sometimes they don't even. But their immune system is in contact with with a milder version of the smallpox. So those, lo and behold, they either don't get the disease, or if they get, they'll get a very mild form of disease. They are more likely to survive. So
well, isn't that kind of uncommon for a disease to go from animals to human?
Not actually, it's not.
Really?
It is
But
actually
nowadays it is,
mammals. See, a virus, again, they don't sit in an elderly group and say we are going to infect this and this. What they use certain biological mechanism. If the biological mechanism is the same, it doesn't care if it's a worm, bacteria, or human. But it is more likely that a mammal has a similar biomechanical pathways than between a bird or a non-insect and a human. The differences are more vast, so it is less likely to get it from a insect to human rather than to a bird to human rather than to a mammal, not a mammal to human. Having said that, even if it's a similar disease, eventually it adjusts to the host. Like the cow smallpox adjusts to the cow's biology. So it's not as effective. This is like a key that it works with. It's like a key that works on many different locks, but it's specialized on the cow and the cow to do its job. So it's not as effective. So it doesn't make human as sick, but still there's enough of the genetic material the same that our immune system says, oh, I know this. This is not good for me. So when the real one comes, it recognizes it, fights it better. Now, our immune system needs time to understand a bad actor and start those paths, like mobilizing your army. If they invade you, your army is already there, then you can fight them better. And that's what the immunization is. Now, so we are in that village now, 1700, 1600. You have no idea what's going on. You see your boys are dying and your girls are not. Especially the girls that are
Yeah.
milking the
milk
cow.
maidens.
Yeah. So what would you do?
Think that the girls are stronger.
No.
I would make the boys milk cows.
No, they did something else.
What did they do?
They took these pustules from the cows' udders,
Mhm.
and then they rubbed it on the boys.
Okay.
And they noticed that similar effect happens, that they die less. Mothers discovered the first vaccination.
Of course, typical. What I heard about smallpox, which is why I chose this topic, incorrect, is that smallpox is the first completely eradicated disease that we've done. First thing that we've completely eradicated, which obviously isn't true because haven't there been a few smallpox cases in the South?
There have been. We will get to that, and I'm going with what that has to do with lots of factors. Now, obviously, the word vaccination comes from smallpox. So this is one of the older things we have been. I think what really made the difference is for us to understand that, and that was before we knew viruses, we really understood the genetic nature of that and saw that there is another way, better way, because that taking the pustule from the udder of the cows and putting it on human, it was good, but it wasn't perfect. Somebody, I'm just wondering if you know who that was, found out there is a way to get actually the pustule from human, do something to it, and then put it on human body, and that works really like magic. That you're done. That works like 99.99%, and so on. Do you know what the name of that person is?
No.
When you drink your milk, you use the name of that person. Louis Pasteur.
Oh, it was on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah. Louis Pasteur found out that, before we knew what the viruses are, that if you take those pustules and then attenuate them, we call it attenuate them, meaning that putting them in different environment, weaken them, denaturate them, do something to them, and then you inoculate that, that is so much better than rubbing cow stuff. So
did one of his children have it or something, or like I wonder what was the conversation and stuff behind that.
Actually, I watched the documentary about his life, amazing life. It's about just curiosity, that he was one of few people that they were truly curious. Now,
just wanting to try stuff.
Yeah, if I know something about academic in 2025 in the United States, is that they kill your curiosity. People who are definitely naturally curious, they go and get grinded in the system, and they just want to produce papers, get their 10-year, and they just have their name something, get a good thing, salary, and practically our academic system kills the curiosity.
I think it would be interesting to do a podcast on like your theory of why the academic system kills curiosity.
But everything that really matters in human life is done by people who had the natural curiosity.
Exactly.
Every single thing. Like Louis Pasteur, he was just curious. He he found a way to treat something that 100% deadly, like rabies. Mm-hmm. Now, he found out that based on the smallpox and other things, your body needs just time to fight this, to understand and fight this without knowing what the immune system is. Imagine, you're just throwing balls in the dark, but you notice if you throw it in certain direction with certain strength, you get better results. Just by natural curiosity, that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
And failure didn't scare him, neither did being outside of the norm. Because at that time, the solution for everything was you let blood.
I know. That was
Everything.
Yeah.
That bloodletting was the cure for everything.
Leeches and stuff.
And that is how you would treat everything. Or this humoral kind of thing. There are 4 humors, uh, black bile, the yellow bile, and so on and so forth. But that was the norm. And when I go to LinkedIn, I see lots of those people 200 years later. That was the norm. And everything of meaning has happened of people who have been outside of the norm and have the system have not been able to kill their curiosity. And Louis Pasteur was one of them. So he found out that if he takes those pustules, put it in different ways, and he did animal tests and so on, obviously, but he found out that he literally can have the effect of the cowpox a lot higher. And lo and behold, even hundreds of years later, that's how the immunization for smallpox works. Now, we were so successful to eliminate the smallpox because it's a very stable virus. It doesn't change that much.
Are smallpox and chickenpox related?
All pox, obviously, viruses are related, but further you go in the tree of life, it's less likely that will affect human.
Do chickenpox really come from chickens?
I think the chickenpox, you can look it up. They're similar, no, I don't believe they come from chicken.
Because when I was a kid,
I don't believe they are
we
coming.
weren't really worried about smallpox, but chickenpox is what we were.
Well, because when you were little, smallpox was eradicated. Chickenpox is much milder. Like the mortality of chickenpox is probably less than 3%. You can look it up as well. So
no, it's not from chickens.
No, it's not from chicken.
It's pretty much like a herpes.
Yeah, it is. As Mel makes pustule and so on. It's a group of viruses that act on our different parts of our body.
It gets the name from chickpeas, like garbanzo beans, and it just looks like that. That's the reason why.
Yeah. Now, it is important though to understand that understanding that changing a virus and inoculating people with it, or at that time we didn't know what viruses are or didn't even exist. Taking that infection material, because already we knew if somebody has it and you are in too much contact with them, you will get it. That except you had it before. So both idea of immunization, vaccination, and contact or close contact was things that we knew already. So in a way, Pasteur got credit for knowledge that mothers have gathered over a long time.
Yeah, but the men always have to take credit for the women, at least back then.
Probably even now. But his Pasteur's genius was to create a path that can be replicated. And lo and behold, smallpox was one of the deadliest disease that we eliminated faster. You remember there are some diseases that are even more deadly, but they are because they limit themselves, they kill their host, they don't propagate. Humanity didn't really have to deal with them as much. But that range of 10 to 30% mortality was a range that everything you read about the Middle Age and the cities and all the catastrophe that happened, that is the range that keep them alive enough to pass it, but not deadly enough to burn itself out. Now, what Pasteur actually, that is a very interesting story based on information he got, that understanding that inoculating it and giving your body time these are the two factors. The rabies is a very deadly disease. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and for that reason, you almost never get the rabies from a human.
No, you get it from animals.
Yeah, because but human would do the same. Rabies is they say lots of myths about vampires come from rabies because they hate the light and they just salivate, and that's where these viruses go to your body, and then they want to just they have this jaw convulsion, and that is why it look like they want to bite you and so on. Okay, and then obviously and they become very aggressive because virus want to give it further. The rabies virus did a miscalculation, thought everything in the life want to bite another thing, so it's concentrated on the saliva and so on. So the knowledge that if you are bitten by an animal who has act like that, that will kill you, rabies, even the word implies
Rabid,
that you're rabid. It was known, and Pasteur applied the information he got from smallpox to that. Said, okay, what happens? And we knew it takes time, and we know the reason why it takes time for rabies to kill you is because those viruses, they have to go from the nerve ending in your arm, for example, all the way back through what we call retrograde axonal transport to the nerve cell in your brain. And then that's what really kills you, and so on. And that takes time. And they knew that if it bites you in the hand, it takes longer than if it bites you in the shoulder or neck, and so on and so forth. Okay. And maybe that's the reason why vampire always
bite the neck.
Bite the neck. Okay. So, and we sort of knew how long it takes in average. So this farmer brings his child who has been bitten by a rabbit. I think it was a fox or something. People already know if that happens, you'll die. It just takes time, but you will die. He come in desperation to Louis Pasteur with the animal and so on. And what
Was
is
the animal dead or alive?
Well, obviously they killed the animal. And so what do you think what Louis Pasteur did?
Probably took something from the animal and put it in the kid.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what he did. He took certain part of the animal.
What part?
I think it's he sort of took the blood and then they spin it down and then plasma. That's what I believe. And then he put it in child's venous system. So, and because in venous system we have a lot of immune cells, and then he increased the dose and so on. So, and he noticed that the time that the child was supposed to die, the child did not die for the first time.
Wow.
For the first time in human history, an expected death did not happen because he applied the knowledge he gained from smallpox. And that is, I guess, the genius of him, that now everything is come natural to us. Mm-hmm. But considering in what a dark situation he was operating and acting.
When was this? Like the early 1900s?
No, 18. I think it was early 1800. Can you look when the Louis Pasteur? It was mid to early 1800 is when he did that. All of a sudden, though, we can cure a 100% deadly disease like rabies.
Okay.
So smallpox has really changed the course of civilization, and it was one of the most successful.
Well, actually, it says the first smallpox vaccine was developed in 1796 by Edward Jenner.
Yeah, but but they made it much more efficient with the time.
Yeah.
So but when was the Louis Pasteur and rabies?
1880s. Like 100 years after.
Yeah, 100 years after. So and because our understanding was then so good, it was eliminated. By the time I think I was 10 years old or 11 years old or maybe 15 years old, United Nations Health Organization, WHO, reported that smallpox is eradicated, except few labs in certain very secure location that had a sample of the virus.
So what is that like? Can you break it down? What does that literally mean? If it's completely eradicated, there's no more humans that have it?
There are no more humans that have it, and if there's no human have it, it cannot give it to anybody else
Okay.
because that virus is so specialized, can live only in a human.
But it was still in the labs.
In few labs, including
Safe.
CDC in Baltimore, that they had some samples of it.
Okay.
So now,
And this was in the 1970s.
almost, yeah, 70s,
1980s.
70s and 80s that I think it was eradicated.
Because what I read is that smallpox was the first and only disease to be completely eradicated.
I'm not sure if it's the only disease, but I know it's the first one that according to WHO, completely eradicated.
Okay.
Now, in evolution, there's something called convergence. Do you know what that means?
No.
Have you ever wondered why eel and snake look similar?
Well, I just kind of thought that they were related.
No, they're absolutely not
They're not
related.
related. Wow.
Not at all. Not at all. Eels are fish. They're so wide away, and snakes are reptilians. Evolution from different direction narrows down and for a certain function. Okay? What that means, they're still human. That path in our body that smallpox virus utilized is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that if you give humanity enough time, some of the other viruses like cow virus and so on mutate. And even though if the genetic stuff will be different or might be the same, it is possible that smallpox will come back.
And it would still be smallpox? It wouldn't be named something else, even if it's a virus evolved from a different virus?
See, if it was 200 years ago, where we go just by the expression of the disease, like how do you behave, we would say it's the same. But now that we have genetic, sequencing and so on,
Mm-hmm.
we will look and say, oh, this is genetic things looks different, and we will give it a different name. Or it is not impossible for some other viruses mutate and make exact copy of the smallpox virus. That's not impossible at all. It is not likely, but it's not impossible. So life has its own way of express itself, and we are just a small medium in that. Well, but the good news for us is that we are not dying of smallpox anymore.
But it is back. So can you talk about that?
I don't know if if it escaped from a lab or if it was like a intentional release or another virus mutated and replicate that. Do you want to look up to see what that is? Because once, or maybe there were some group of people that they weren't captured by WHO, but that is, but I'm not sure if the smallpox that we have to deal with is back or is a variation of it is back. So that would be unlikely.
It must be a variation of it, because when I ask chat, it says if smallpox is back in 2025, that would be a historic global crisis.
Yeah. It must be some other variation, milder form of other pox disease that is just getting stronger.
I think so.
But definitely not at the level of the smallpox that we are used to.
We should sometime talk about polio being back.
Yeah, polio is a different story.
Or measles.
And same with measles. There's still now all this. Okay, well, this is going to upset a lot of anti-vaxxers. And what I'm going to say, but a virus lives of a substrate, and guess what? We are the substrate. You take the substrate away by vaccinating the herd immunity, and the virus doesn't have anywhere to go, and they die.
Mm-hmm.
But by giving them continuously substrate, meaning people who are not vaccinated,
they evolve and get stronger?
They can. All viruses evolve and become stronger with the time. That's a natural, what we call it, we have even a name for that. We call the evolutionary arm race. Our immune system gets stronger, viruses get stronger. But by not vaccinating against the disease that we know they are still existing, we are keeping those diseases alive. Now, we know as well, yeah, I mean, I'm not denying that some vaccines, they have their own side effect, but considering...
Like penicillin.
Well, penicillin, some people are allergic to penicillin, will die of penicillin.
Exactly.
But if you take the penicillin away from medical care
A
or
lot of people will
antibiotic, probably 1 million times more people will die than considering, that some people may still have allergic reaction to penicillin, may die of it. Yes, they may. But in medicine, we don't look at that way. We see risk versus benefit. And the benefit of vaccination tremendously outweighs the risk of it. Okay?
Okay. Thank you guys for watching. This was Essence of Medicine, and we talked about smallpox. I'm Amanda Armagoss.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence.
Have a good weekend.